So I'm not going to give any introduction because the Megillah doesn't have an introduction. It just starts in the beginning, so that's a good place for us to start. With no further ado, Vayihi bimei Achashverosh, and it was in the days of Achashverosh. Who Achashverosh? He is Achashverosh. Hamalech. Yes. It's recording. Oh yeah, or at least I hope it is. So again, Vayihi bimei Achashverosh, and it was in the days of Achashverosh. Who Achashverosh? He is Achashverosh. Hamalech mehodu v'yad Kush, who reigns from Hodu to Kush. Sheva ve'esrimu me'am medina, 7 and 20 and 100 provinces. Now, you recognize that sentence is absolutely incoherent. It's blither blather. It was in the days of Achashverosh. Who Achashverosh? He is Achashverosh. You know the one. What do you mean you know the one? You said it was in the days of Achashverosh. What do you mean he is the Achashverosh? It's a very strange way to say it. So, the Gemara points out, first of all, that Vayihi, whenever the Pasuk says to you, Vayihi bimei, it was in the days of, that's bad. That is bad news. First, the Gemara advances a possibility and says, whenever it says Vayihi, it's very bad, because it says Vayihi b'mei shvot hashoftim, and Vayihi bayom hashmini, and in this one people die, and in that one people die, and it's all terrible. And the Gemara says, no, there's a few good ones, like Vayer vayvoker yom echad, Vayer vayvoker yom sheni, and those were good days. So the Gemara concludes, Vayihi can go either way. It could be good, it could be bad. Vayihi b'mei, that is only bad. If it says it was in the days of, it's terrible. And in fact, the word Vayihi, the Gemara relates, is really a compilation of Vayihi, which means oy vey. Mamish means oy vey. Now, why is it so oy vey? So the Maral points out that the reason Vayihi is always an oy vey is because Vayihi means you're in the stages of becoming. Now, whenever you're becoming anything, that means you're in transition. And if you're in transition, that means that you're not perfect. And process is hard. Process is hard. So by definition, Vayihi is going to be difficult. And here, Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh is terrible. Who Achashverosh? He is the Achashverosh, Hamolech, who is reigning. Hamolech? I mean, surely you mean Shemalach, who reigned. What do you mean he is reigning? So the Gemara says, Hamolech, he is reigning. He is always in the process of becoming king. He doesn't reign. He's becoming king. Now why? Why are you becoming king? The Pasuk is framing for you not just the time, as in like chronologically, is he before Alexander the Great? Is he after Caesar? When does he come? It's not so interested in that. It's setting the theme so you understand the time, so you understand the mood of the people. So when it says Vayihi bimei, that means already it's really, really terrible to begin with. And then Hamolech, he's not exactly comfortable reigning. Well, why not? Because he's not royal. Achashverosh isn't royal. He was not raised to be king. He somehow becomes king. He somehow comes to power. How does that happen? It's not so simple. The Gemara has a couple different theories. One is that he bought it. But when you say buy it, right, even when you say buy it, it doesn't mean you just bought it. It means there's a lot of political machinations going around. Now, what we do know is that he himself might not be royal, but you know who is? His woman. Yeah, Vashti, man. She is royal as heck. She is as royal can be. Her blood is blue. She comes from the greatest dynasty on planet Earth at the time. And you say, well, that would surely be the Egyptians, but not at that point. The Egyptians had already become a weaker nation. In fact, her people conquered the Egyptians. Her people are the Babylonians. She is Kastit. She is a Babylonian. Her grandfather, you may have heard of him, is Nebuchadnezzar, the guy that destroyed the temple. Very, very bad dude. And then his son Abel Merodach, terrible guy, and then his son Belshazzar, and then finally we get to Vashti. So Vashti is royal. Now, naturally, she cements Achashverosh's claim to the throne. Because if you're married to that kind of family, you have a claim. So yes, there's also the money angle, but her claim is the fact it's actual birth. Now, there is one other small little thing that Achashverosh has, which we'll see soon, and that's called an army. And that helps, it turns out. If you want to be in charge, if you want to be king, it really does go a long way to have an army. So Hamolech, he is reigning because he doesn't really feel very, confident in his Melucha. Mehodu va'ad Kush, from Hodu all the way to Kush, 127 nations. Now the Gemara says there's two different theories as to where Hodu and Kush are. Either they're literally side by side and he rules all the way around the world the same way he rules here and here. He rules 360 degrees. And the other one is Hodu's all the way over here, Kush is all the way over here, and he reigns over the whole thing. The point is, whichever one you go with, this guy's got a heck of a kingdom. I mean, he is throwing down, he's not messing around. He's the king of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. It's the largest land empire the world has ever seen. Bayamim hahem, in those days, Kisheves hamelach Achashverosh al kisei malchuso, as King Achashverosh is sitting on the throne of his kingdom, Asher b'Shushan habira, that is in Shushan the capital, again, you recognize that the first two words of that sentence, in those days. What do you mean in those days? You just said in the previous sentence, Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh. It was in the days of Achashverosh. So what do you mean by Amim Haim in those days? Obviously, it's those days. You understand that he, I promise you that he wasn't king in the days when he wasn't there. Right? Like, obviously. So by Amim Haim, of course it's in those days. So what do you mean by Amim Haim? So again, the Gemara comes out and it says, whenever you have by Amim Haim, it means Yamim Shel Tsar. It was days of suffering. It was days of suffering. It was terrible. Who was it terrible for? I'll give you 3 hints. The Jews. It was really, really bad for the Jews. The Gemara relates that Achashverosh's name, and you find this like throughout the Chazal, whenever it comes to biblical characters, the Gemara darshans their names. It's like, well, why is that his name? So you even have this with Pharaoh. You have it with Pharaoh. It's like, well, why is his name Paro? Because Paro, Kifarao means uncovered. It also means Piraon, which means payback, and God certainly does payback. But it's like, you're like, yeah, but 1 second. I mean, you recognize that Pharaoh is an Egyptian word. They didn't name Paro after the Torah's word for payback. That's absurd. Why would you think that? And similarly, when you have like, oh, Nebuchadnezzar, he's got all these horrible things in his name in Hebrew. It's like, but it's a Babylonian name. It's Nebu. Literally, it's the name of the ship in the Matrix, right? It's like, so why would you think he's named after the Torah? The truth is that he's not. But you understand that everything, all languages come from Lashon Kodesh. They all come from the plural language, which means that the building blocks within them are to be found in Hebrew. So you can have any name that's going to make sense in that particular culture. When you put it in the Torah, when you put it through the Torah's lens, it will have the same name and show you what the Torah thinks of that person simultaneously. Now, in general, that's a cool trick, which the Torah does all the time, but in the Megillah, it's much cooler. Because in the Megillah, at the end of the first chapters, we're going to see, for some reason, it's all about languages. Because it says that we send out michtavim, whenever we send out messages in the Megillah, it's medina medina kichtava va'am va'am kilshono, which means each province in their alphabet and each nation with their language. Why do you have to say that? Surely you don't have to say that. Like if you were saying that a communication went out from the Biden White House, you wouldn't have to say that when it went out to, Telemundo Deportes and Oprima el Nuero. It's not important. I understand. So you get each, when you talk to the people, you talk in whatever language they speak. Why do you have to stress it? The reason it's stressed in the Megillah is because there's a paradigm shift all of a sudden from what was to what's about to be. And the world that was is the Babylonian world. So the Babylonian world, the Nebus of the world are about to go down and never, ever, ever resurface. But we see this concept even by Achashverosh. The Gemara says, why is his name Achashverosh? Because the word Achashverosh is Ach, my head, Ach Roshi, which means that whenever anyone would say his name, the Jews would go, Ach. And if you can't imagine that, well, of course you can imagine that. What are you talking about? You can think of 15 different politicians that anybody in the business just brings up their name, and that's exactly your reaction. It's exactly your reaction. So, I mean, it's not hard to imagine. So in those days, which were terrible days of Tsar, and the Jews lost all their money, the Gemara says, we're much happier when we have money. It's a fact. We're happier. So like, even if we're in Gullus, we've been in Gullus in Anatevka, and we've been in Gullus in Miami Beach, and Miami Beach is better. It's just that simple. So in the time of Achashverosh, things were very, very bad. Kisheves hamelech Achashverosh al kisei malchuso. Kisheves, as he is sitting. Kisheves, like sitting. What do you mean like sitting? He is sitting. It's not like sitting. You don't like sit, you sit or you don't sit. So here again, Kisheves, on his royal chair. What is the Megillah talking about on his royal chair? You told me he's in charge. I get it, he's in charge. I don't need to hear about the chair. It's like, but what color was the chair? So from this, the Medrash understands, no, the chair matters. The chair matters. Apparently there's something about the chair, and there's something about how he's always in the process of sitting, but never actually sitting. He's trying to sit on his chair. Well, how difficult is it to sit on a chair? So the Gemara says, you know what? There was a very particular special chair that was a kisei malchut. It was the throne of kingship, and it was very hard to sit on for some reason. And what throne was that? What chair was that? Shlomo's chair. Shlomo HaMelech, King Shlomo. Apparently, this dude had a heck of a chair. Crazy chair. It had 6 steps. It was like golden, totally pimp my chair style. And it had animals on the different sets, like eagle and the lions, cool thing like that. And every time you would walk on one of the steps, there were 6 steps that would go all the way up to like the royal seat. And each time you would step on one of the steps, it would squawk out another commandment, a kingly commandment. So the first three the Gemara says is it will say, Lo yarbe lo nashim, he can't have too many women. Lo yarbe lo susim, he can't have too many horses. Lo yarbe lo kesef v'zav, lo yarbe lo ma'od, can't have too much money. And then the final three the Gemara says is Lo satem mishpat, lo takir panim, lo tikach shochad, which is do not pervert justice, do not recognize faces, do not take a bribe. So every time the king would take another step, it was basically another step deeper into what it is that the king is supposed to be doing, which is not sitting on a big fancy yellow metal chair, but rather serving the people, judging the people, elevating the people. That's what he's all about. But it says that Shlomo's chair, as you would imagine, it wasn't just a fancy chair. The thing had mechanisms. You had to know how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, that's like getting into some guy's F-22 Raptor, but it's not your F-22 Raptor, and you try to turn on the ignition, but like, no, you can't turn on the ignition, man. That thing is like biometrics to you. Like, it just doesn't work. So the Medrash traces the history of the chair. And it's like, well, first what happens is when Shlomo dies, remember who Shlomo married? Bat Paro. He marries the daughter of Pharaoh. Second he dies, Pharaoh comes in and demands it as a dowry for his daughter. So that's the first place that the Chazal trace it. Now, this Paro eventually becomes known as Paro Nechei, which means the lame Paro. The lame Paro, the handicapped Paro. Nechei, in modern Hebrew, is a handicap sticker, is Nechei. Why was he Paro Nechei? Because he tried to walk on the chair and he gets bitten by the lion. And from forevermore, he's known as handicap Paro because he went lame from trying to sit on Shlomo's chair. So it turns out it's not the type of chair that you want to sit on. You want to have it, you want to look cool with it, but it's hard to actually get on. And it goes all the way around. It goes to Nebuchadnezzar and it goes to Sancherev, and it ends up all the way back, boom, with this guy, Achashverosh. So Achashverosh was trying to sit, but couldn't. So instead, he does the next best thing. He makes a replica. He makes a replica of this crazy chair. It looks the same, but it's not the same. It is cheap Taiwanese imitate. Probably not cheap. It's very expensive imitation, and that is why the Megillah is stressing that that's the chair he wants to sit on, because that's really the chair that he desires to sit upon, but it never ever works for him. And he sits Asher B'Shushan Habirah, that is in Susa, the capital. Again, the Torah doesn't need to bloody tell you what city was his capital city. It's not relevant. Nobody cares. But the point is, the Chazal say he moved the capital. He moved the capital. Why? Why would he move the capital? Why is it significant? Why is he moving it? So what that tells you, whenever you have a king that comes to power and moves the capital, that means he wants to do a paradigm shift. He wants to take the culture and say, no, we're going to try something else. We're going to do this differently. We've been in Washington, D.C. for 250 years. Guess what? It's not working. We're moving to Kentucky. And that's what he does. And he moves it to Susa. And it's really cool because you can Wikipedia this. Thank God for Wikipedia. If you want to see the palace, you can. You can see the palace. It is, oh my God. We're going to read about it. It's awesome. So that's what he does. Bishna Shalosh L'Malcho, Pasuk 3. It was in the third year of his reign. Asa Mishteh. He makes a party. L'chol Sarav Avadav. For all of his hangers-on and posse and entourage. Chel Paras Umadai, the armies of Persia and Media, Hapartimim and the satraps, Visarei HaMedinot Lefanav, and all the various officers of the countries that are before him. Now remember, he's got 127 nations. That's a lot of bureaucrats. This is like the G6 plus the Bilderberg Conference plus BRICS, like they're all getting together. That's what's going on here. And he does this in the third year of his reign. Now the Gemara points out, why would you make a party in the third year of your reign? Remember when Bush W., when he got, in his inauguration party, he had a longhorn bull brought to the party. I remember that. You know why? Because it's the only time they had a bull, like a 10,000-pound bull in the Four Seasons. Like, that's pretty cool. And you can do that when you're, the president from Texas. You could do that. So he did. He had, really cool stuff. Now, he did that, of course. If he would have done it in the second year of his second term, people would have been like, why do you soil the carpet of the Four Seasons? It's not this is a strange thing to do. It's very egotistical. Why are you doing that? But if it's your inauguration party, then people are like, oh yeah, he's from Texas. Go Longhorns. Like, yeah, sure, why not? Okay. But Achashverosh is doing this in the third year of his reign. So he's having this gigantic party apropos nothing. Why does he in the third year of his reign? That doesn't make any sense. So the Gemara says, you know why? Because he knows how to count to 70. He knows how to count to 70. You see, the Jews were in Israel for the better part of 1,000 years the first time. Like, until the Babylonians destroyed it. You have to understand this. When the Jews saw the Babylonian army marching on Jerusalem, they did not think they'd be victorious. I mean, they didn't think that the Babylonians would be victorious. Really? You're coming to march on God? I don't think so. I don't think so. It's not going to work for you. We're going to sit here and watch you try, but it's never going to work. It didn't work for the Assyrians. Sennacherib IV. He got rid of the northern kingdom, right? We have 10 lost tribes due to him. 10 lost tribes. They're all gone because he totally destroyed the north. He marches on the south, and the army dies in one night without firing a shot. So no one thought it could ever happen. And then when it happened, people were like, oh, what? Like, what? You burned down God's building? How is it possible to burn down God's building? It does not compute. But the Navi told them that it was going to happen. Yirmiyahu was running around for years screaming at the Jews, if you don't shape up, everything's going to burn down. It's going to be a Holocaust. It's going to be terrible. They didn't believe him. Turned out he was right. He was right. We believe him because we're like, we've seen that lots of times. It's hot, right? You can make it colder. Thank you so much. Excellent. I knew I chose the right person. Thank you. So what happened was the Navi said that the Babylonian exile would last 70 years. So what happened was the Babylonian king is Nebuchadnezzar. He dies. His son Evil-Merodach takes over. He dies. His son Belshazzar takes over. And just so happens, it's on the calendar. 70 years since my grandpa Nebuchadnezzar became king. Ad malot levavel shivim shana. Well, it's 70 years, and the Jews are not back in Judea. They're right here, and that means the Jewish God is dead. And if the Jewish God is dead, take out the crates, take out the crates. And they pull out the crates. They pull out the stuff from the Beis HaMikdash. Now, Nebuchadnezzar was a very complicated guy. And he actually had a relationship with Daniel. Daniel, the seer, Daniel Achozeh. Like, they knew each other. They would talk. He understood. Like, he threw him in a lion's den, but subsequently they got along very, very well. So he understood that Hashem is God. He understood that. So he never opened those crates, and he never ate off those plates, and he never drank from those cups. He left them in the box. But now his grandson Belshazzar is like, yeah, Jewish God's dead. There's no more Hashem. Do you have any idea how cool the Kohen Gadol's clothing are? Remember I said it's going to be like attached to the Parshios of Truma and Tetzaveh? It always is. It always is. We're talking about Kahuna Gadol left, right, and center. We're talking about golden buildings. What do you think that sounds like? It's Achashverosh and it's the temple. And he's, again, always a cheap imitation. So Belshazzar pulls out the crates, dresses up like the Kohen Gadol. He's having a huge party. And that's the famous story of the writing on the wall. That's one of my favorite stories in Tanakh. I love the story. The story is that they're having this wild, wild party. We're not going to go into it because it's going to take way too much time to say why he was having the party, but suffice it to say because he conquered the Persians. And then in this party, all of a sudden, there's a hand. And the hand, just, can you imagine? You're having this crazy party and all of a sudden everybody's like tripping on the same hand. It's weird, right? I mean, we've all been there, but it's weird, yeah. And it writes 4 words on the wall. It writes Menei, Menei, Takel, Ufarsin, and disappears. That's scary. I mean, that's very sketchy. It's my Hillel kids who would say that's hella sus. Okay, yeah. Like disembodied hands writing things on the wall is very strange. The fact that also it wrote incoherent babble on the wall because Menei, Menei, Takel, Ufarsin doesn't mean anything. So the king is like, oh my gosh, he freaks out, he stops the band, and the waiters put down all the food, they don't know what to do, and they call in the Jew boy, because maybe he'll know what the answer is, and they call in Daniel. Now Daniel, at this point, is an older man, because he used to work for his grandfather, for Nebuchadnezzar. The thing is, when Daniel worked for Nebuchadnezzar as a prophet, it doesn't make sense to us, like in our chronology, it doesn't make sense. He was a boy. He was 12. He was 12. It's unbelievable. When he was taken from Judea, what they used to do was, I mean, it's like, again, it's Game of Thrones 101. When you conquer another kingdom, you take their nobles' children as your page boys. Because, like, how cool are you if the guy who fetches your pipe and your slippers is the crown prince of England? It's like, well, guess what? You're the crown prince of my slippers now. It's like, go fetch them. I want the purple ones, yeah? No, wrong purple. The other ones, yeah? So it's like, that's what's up. So he had these nobles of Jerusalem, one of whom is Daniel, and Daniel is a child, and this kid is rather precocious because he, sees things, and he helps Nebuchadnezzar out of quite a pinch once or twice. So now, at this point, this is already the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar as king, and he sees this crazy apparition happen. And he doesn't know what to do. He calls in all the king's horses and all the king's men, and they don't know. We know this from Paro. They don't know what they look at. They make things up, right? They're basically, psychobabble. They make things up. So the mother or grandmother of the king says to him, your grandfather used to have this Jew. His name was Daniel. Why don't you see if he's still alive, and he might be able to answer it for you? And he's like, Mom, that's a great idea. Looks for him, finds him, brings him in. And they say, hey man, listen, if you can tell me what that means, I'll give you half the money in the treasury. And Daniel says to him, I can tell you what it means, but you can keep your money. It means you've been weighed, you've been found wanting, and you die tonight. That's what he tells the king of Babylonia to his face. And to the credit of the king did not remove his head from his shoulders, but instead he augmented the defenses. We're not going to go into how he died. It's a great story. It's an unbelievable story, maybe another time. Amazing story. He dies that night. Why does he die? Because why are you taking out the crates? God gave you great victory. Hashem has done so much for you and for your family, and now you dare to party on his plates? So you're a dead man. Now, Achashverosh, I assured you, knows that story. Which means he's not going to eat from those plates. He's very happy to have his other golden plates and leave those cursed plates over there, because those are the bad luck plates. And leave them over there. But now, in the third year of Achashverosh's reign, he also knows how to count to 7. He's like, my my predecessor, my father-in-law counted from the wrong time. I count from the right time. Third year of his reign. Out come the plates. So in the third year of his reign, Achashverosh makes a party, which shows you that what Achashverosh is celebrating is not his own, it's not his own malchus. He's celebrating the demise of the Jew. That's what makes him so happy. It's unbelievable. It's like I'm reading Mamish today. I'm reading in the news today that at the United States and all of the Arab countries are coming together and they're planning to announce within the next 2 weeks a Palestinian state. They're planning. It's like unbelievable. Unbelievable. You're in the middle. You're knee deep embroiled in a war, up to your neck in a war, fighting against terrorists or living in hospitals, running out of things, shooting RPGs at you like a whack-a-mole. And what's everybody sitting around doing? Not how do we get the hostages back, not how do we get rid of the terrorists, how do we give them a Palestinian state? Don't you understand? They're sitting in the back room smoking cigars thinking, okay, so like how do we get the state and where the border is going to be and how many of the Israeli settlers are we going to put sanctions on? And what? The answer is they're obsessed with you. Obsessed with you. And you know who else is? Everybody. Everybody. So Achashverosh is also obsessed with you. So when does he make his inauguration party and put the big bull in the 4 seasons? Third year of his reign, because he knows how to count to 70. So he does it in the third year. And who does he invite? Everybody, because he's the happiest man in the world, because the Jews aren't going back. It's the greatest day for him. Unbelievable day. He invites everyone. Now you'll notice, and the Malbim points this out, who does he invite first? Not the politicians. No, they come last. You know who comes first? The army. Which means he understands exactly where his power comes from. The source of his power, the army. Beharoto, pasuk 4, Beharoto, es osher kivod balchuso, v'esikarti feres gedulaso, yamim rabim, shmonim v'as yom. And as he showed off the richness of his malchus and the Yikarti Feres Gedula. So the Gemara says the Yikarti Feres Gedula so means that he wore the big day kahuna, because it says that you will make V'yasisa big day kodesh de'aron achicha lechavod ulesifares. You will make clothing of holiness for Aaron lekavod ulesifares, which is the same word that is used over here for Achashverosh. So he puts on the clothing of the Kohen Gadol. Now you would say, why would Achashverosh specifically want to wear the clothing of the Kohen Gadol? That's a strange thing for him to be obsessed with. Surely he has very nice clothing, which he absolutely does. So I think here is very simple. Achashverosh's move was equality. He invites everybody. There is no hierarchy. We don't say that, these people, they're the cool kids, they're going to get the better seats, and those kids, they're less cool, they're going to sit in the back. He doesn't do that. He says, I'm a populist. Everybody's welcome. Everyone has a seat at the table. Everyone is equal. The ultimate humanist. Achashverosh, by the way, the Persians, as opposed to the Babylonians and as opposed to the Assyrians, did allow religious freedom. They allowed religious freedom. Remember that the reason that the Jews were allowed to go back and build a second temple originally was because of Cyrus, Kurash, the original king of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. In fact, Dan Carlin points this out in Hardcore History episode. He has a series on the Achaemenid Persian Empire called King of Kings. It's really cool. You should watch it. And he says that he points out from this history. I don't remember if it was Paul Johnson or somebody else. He goes, when you think about the Persians, you're like, yeah, whatever. It's a historical anomaly. Who really cares? It's just a blip on these things. No. You don't understand. The world that we have today, the entire world that we have today, if not for the Persians, it's different. And you're like, why? Why is he such a Persian lover? He's not. Here's what he says. He goes, if not for Cyrus, the first emperor of the Persians, the Jews maybe don't go back to Judea. If the Jews don't go back to Judea, you have no Jews. You have no Christians. You have no Muslims. You have no Mormons. What does the world look like? Answer is nobody knows. And by the way, it's not even a true assertion, because if he wouldn't have let it go, believe me, God has another plan to make it happen. But the point is, it is fascinating that they did allow for that. And the reason they allowed for that is because they were, again, humanists. And like, hey man, you do you. If you want to have your imaginary sky god, cool, you do that. If you want to have spaghetti monster, you can go spaghetti monster. You can have the devil worshippers. We're fine with that. We're all going to be together. Hallelujah, have a cup of Coke. We're good. And that's what they were all about. So he's showing off his money, and it says Osher Kavod Malchuso Vesikar Tiferes Gedulaso, which is 6. So the Rishonim point out, it's a medrash, but the Gemara makes a point of it, that he does this for 180 days. 180 days. It says Osher Kavod Malchuso Tiferes Yikar Gedulaso. What's 180 times 6? Any math people in the room? I say 1080, no? I want to say 1080, which is the number of golden storehouses. I shouldn't say golden. I should say hidden storehouses of Nebuchadnezzar. So the Gemara asks, how does this idiot get so much money? Which is a strange question for the Gemara to ask, because I know a lot of idiots with a lot of money, but this is apparently stupid money, okay? So the Gemara's like, how does this fool make that much money? He says, I'll tell you how. Here's what happened. Nebuchadnezzar conquered the whole known world. He gathered all the money together, and he was a miser. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says the guy was Einot Tsar, which means that he was very, very parsimonious. He was cheap. So he didn't spend any of his money. He didn't make these massive, infrastructure projects. He didn't do that. And then as he got older, he thought to himself, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. Some loser king is going to come after me. He's going to take all my money. I don't want to waste my money on him. So he had 1,080 storehouses submerged in the Euphrates River and hidden so that no other king would ever come and take his loot. That's what he did. Now, P.S., the Gemara says, but God gave it to Koresh. Why did God give it to Koresh? Because Koresh let the Jews go back to build the Beis HaMikdash. So Hashem made sure that Koresh found it. You understand that in order to find it, he had to divert the Euphrates River. And he found 1,080 storehouses of Nebuchadnezzar, which means that for 6 things, Osher Kavod Malchuso, Yikar Tiferes Gedulaso, 180 days, he opened up 6 different storehouses every single day. And each one of these things was a show. That was a show. So he was showing off hardcore. And at the end of these days, is it that time already? They're back from Nassau. So, at the end of those days, he made a party for the people of Susa. Just for the people of Shushan. I've had 6 months. Remember, that's a 6-month party. You have to admire his stamina. 6 months of party. Pretty good, right? That's Kanye level. Yeah? Yeah. So 6 months. And then when he's done, he's like, and now, 7 days, special party for the locals. Now I'm going to throw a local shebang. And it says, Bachatzar Ginas Bisan HaMelech. Now, is it in the Chatzar, is it in the Gina, or is it in the Bitan? Which refers to, it's what they call an apadna. You can see this thing. You can literally Wikipedia it, and they will show you what the palace at Susa looked like. He had a 45-acre hallway for parties. It's going to be a nice party. Yeah. The gardens, they were nice gardens. They made Versailles look small. Persians did everything big. Everything. I mean, unbelievable. It says that they had 60 cubits of foundations dug. I'm not going to go through this because, again, you can look it up on Google yourself and see actual pictures of it. It's staggering. Okay? So it says in the Gemara that originally he thought he's going to do it in the mall. He's like, yeah, I got enough room. No, there was spillover. And they spill over into the garden. And then they spill over into his private chambers. That's how many people showed up. And you're like, why did everyone show up? You know exactly why. Look at this party. It's unbelievable. Special party. I want to see the inside. Who doesn't want to see the inside of Buckingham Palace? It's like, yeah, I did the tour. This is not what they show you on the tour. They don't take you to these places on the tour. Chor karpasu secheles achuz b'chalibutz margamon al galile chesef amudei sheish mitos zahav chesef al ritzpas ba'at v'sheish v'dar v'sochares. Now this pasuk seemingly is telling you about all the riches of the place. So it's like, oh wow, they had these all different kinds of marble and different types of dyes and purple dyes and blue dyes and linens. It was gorgeous, and gold and silver and all that stuff. Now that's of course true, but again the Gemara is like, that's not why it's telling you that. It's like, it doesn't need to tell you that. It's not, you're not an interior decorator. So the Gemara goes through this pasuk and actually says that darvas ochares, what this pasuk really is a play on words telling you that apart from showing his wealth and from throwing down massive, massive money on the party, he also let go of taxes. So he says, hey, darvas ochares is kara dror lebale schora. Which means he says, you know what? This year, keep your money. Keep your money. Now tell me something. How does that make you feel? When the President of the United States, when the Congress says, we're not going to take any taxes this year, how do you feel? You feel so good. You feel so good. I mean, you know that'll never happen, right? The only two things that are certain are death and taxes. This is the one time in like recorded history that the king was like, no mas taxisos. Like, we're not going to do that. You're going to see at the end of the Megillah that he reverses course and he lays the smackdown on huge taxes that are punitive. But for right now, he is showing magnanimity. He's like, no taxes, it's great. So it's the greatest party in the world because not only are you drinking his booze and eating like the sides of woolly mammoths, and it's amazing, but also you get to keep another 35% of your own money. Wow! Vashkos b'chlei zahav, and the drinking was done in golden goblets, v'chelim mikelim shonim, and the vessels were vessels that were different. V'chelim mikelim shonim. We read that in Echatun. The reason we read in Echatun is because the Gemara says that means he took out the kelim of the Beis HaMikdash. And that's why it uses the word shonim, because shonim means to repeat, to do again. Because it says when they did this, the angels went, again? Really? You're going to open those boxes? You didn't learn the first time? You don't remember what happened to your father-in-law? And remember, he does remember what happened to his father-in-law. That's why he waited another 3 years. That's the problem. This is the problem with people. They think, oh yeah, he got it wrong, but I'll do better. Right? It's like the guy who, I'll buy the pizza shop, I'll know how to run it, right? Don't worry, I'll figure it out. Okay, good for you. We'll see. It's like, it's never going to work. So this is what he does. And the Gemara says, Bas Satan v'riked b'neihem. And Satan came and danced a little jig in between them, and 2 minutes later, his father-in-law is no longer his father-in-law because his wife is without a head. We'll get to that soon. V'yein malchus rav kiyara melech. And the wine flowed like the hand of the king. And when I say hand of the king, I don't mean Tyrion Lannister. I mean that it was literally Kiyara Melech. There was no end to the vino. And the Gemara says, Rav, it was older than you. So when you came in, you showed him your AARP card, and he'd be like, okay, I have some 70-year-old Macallan just for you. Come on and sit. However old you are, I have wine that's older than you. Pretty cool stuff. It makes the forge look like, Tinseltown. V'ashesiyach adas, ein onis. And the drinking was as the custom. Ein onis. We don't force anyone. There was no drink rape. Because, as kings go, sometimes as kings go, I said drink. You will drink. You're not going to sit in the courtroom of Kublai Khan and not take a shot when we toast the king. I mean, you better, because if not, we'll find something fun to do with your corpse when we're finished with you. So you have to drink. You have to drink. And then horrible, horrible things happen, because what do you think happens when you get mad drunk in front of the king of the world? You say something, and then it's over for you. But here, Achashverosh is like, no. Remember, I'm a humanist. Hashasiyach hadas. Now, the word das comes up in the Megillah again and again and again and again and again. Here's what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean religion. Like we translate the word dat in modern Hebrew as religion. When it says v'hashasiyach hadas ein ones, the drinking was like religion, there's no forcing. What does that mean? Because that das doesn't mean religion. Das means a philosophy, it means a vibe, it means a culture, the way things are done. So when it says v'hashasiyach hadas, it meant that if you're from a place, you are from Sibir, we drink a lot of vodka, no problem. You can have this problem. You can go to the Siberian angle. You got the section right here. This is Siberian section, and you have vodka luges just shooting up all day. And over there, everyone is just trashed. And then over here, you have the Amish section, and they're not drinking. And that's fine because they don't do the drinking, right? And in the Mormons, you can have one beer but not two, yeah. And then you get to the Jewish section, we know what we drink. And like the point is, it's whatever you do, you. Because that was Achashverosh. I mean, there are some likable things about him. I'm not going to lie, and that was one of them. Kichein Yisad Hamelech, because this is what the king decreed al kol rav beiso, on all the officials of his house. La'asos kirshon ish v'ish, to do like the desire of every man and man. Now, when it says Kichein Yisad HaMelech, not Siva HaMelech. It doesn't say because the king commanded. The word Siva is the king commanded. It doesn't say commanded, it says Yisad. The word Yisad means Yisod. Yisod means a foundation. The king foundationed. It means that this is his philosophy. It's the king's philosophy. It's not his command. It's not his will. It's not his desire. It's literally his way. The point of this party is to do the will of every single individual. Make sure they're all happy. It's like, how do you make sure 800,000 people are happy? The answer is, I don't know, but you better. But you better. And that means that there's 800,000 individuals. You ever been to a Pesach program? It's a little bit like that. When you go on a Pesach program, right, you're the king. And if you don't believe me that you're the king, ask the waiter what you said to him, right? I want do you know how much money I'm paying to be here? You're the king. And by the way, you're entitled to it because you did throw down $800 quadrillion in order to be there. So when you're there, this is not how I like my steak. Okay, well, they're going to bring you another one. They're going to spit on it, but they're going to bring you another one. Right? We know that, fact. So this is like the ultimate Pesach program. Lasos kirtzon ish va'ish. Now the deeper level on that, as the Gemara says, there's only two people in the Megillah that are identified as ish. There are two people in the Megillah who are called ish. The first is Mordi. Ish Yehudi haya b'Shoshana b'Rau Shmo Mordechai. There was this guy Mordechai, ish, a man, a Judean man. And the other guy is ish tsar ve'oyev, Haman hara hazeh. So the Gemara says, Lasos kirtzon ish va'ish, means that the diametrically opposed principles of Haman and Mordechai, Achashverosh wanted to make sure that they're both very, very happy at this party. So that is his philosophy, not his will. It's his yesod. Also, Vashti, the queen, made a party in the palace of the king. What do you mean also? What do you mean also? Surely you mean to say Vashti made a party. What do you mean she also made a party? Gemara says also made a party means they had exactly the same idea in mind. Achashverosh and Vashti were of the same mind, which is to say they knew what kind of party they wanted to have. And this was not the type of party that's only a party. This is going to be a party. The type of party where, you understand this is a very frum party. Because she makes it in the girls section. There's a guys section, there's a girls section. That's a very, that's very Heimish. It must have been in Lakewood. Yeah, look at a nice Heimish party. Yeah, that's how it started out. There was a plan. She was in on the plan. Shnei and la'osa davar niskavnu. So what was supposed to happen is, remember, we got a 7-day party, and then at the end of the party, you got to take it up a notch. Well, here's the best way to take it up a notch. We're going to take all the girls from the girl party, and we're going to join the men in the men party, and that's how you make it a real party. And it was on the 7th day. And the king's heart was good with wine. Amari said, he said to his 7 dudes, Shivas hasarisim, the 7 courtiers, who serve the face of King Achashverosh. On the 7th day, the king's heart was good with wine. That's another way of saying he is drunk. And the Gemara says, really? It took that dude 7 days to get drunk? It doesn't take 7 days to get drunk. You're not trying hard enough. You can do it in, an hour and a half.
Was this though after the 180 days?
Yeah, this is during the 7 days. This is a special 7-day party after the 180-day party. So he's been drunk for a year. This is a great year. So the Gemara says, why would he take 7 days to get drunk? Well, he didn't take 7 days to get drunk. It wasn't day 7. It was the 7th day. When it says the 7th day, we don't mean 7th day of the party. We mean Shabbos. Bayom HaShivi'i, on Shabbos. And you say, that's a strange thing to say. Why are you telling me what day of the week it was? Who cares? Tell me, was it the 15th of the month or the 16th of the month? We don't know. We don't care. What time of day was it? We don't know. We don't care. What was the weather? Same thing. We don't know. We don't care. So why does that tell you it was Shabbos? So it must be that Shabbos is imperative, integral, essential for what it is that the Torah is saying to you. So it turns out that it is. So the Gemara says, here, whenever it says Hamelech in the Megillah, and it's Stam Hamelech, it refers to Hashem. And Hashem was really happy. He says, you know why? Listen, when people get drunk, well, let's talk about, there's different types of people, right? Not all people are the same. Let's talk about Jews for a minute. If you've ever been to a nice kiddush, and you have, and maybe you had one or two more than you should have, okay, it's nice single malt. They put out like the Balvenie 17 or, some nice Macallan 18. Yeah? So you take maybe a few more than you should have, and then you're a little shtickle tipsy. So what happens in the Suda when you got a bunch of yeshiva guys sitting together and they're tipsy? They start to sing shiurs with the shpachas. One of them tells his Dvar Torah that he made up. No, okay, maybe it's good, maybe it's not good, but he said Dvar Torah, different shiurs with the shpachos. So Achashverosh says, look at my kids, unbelievable, so beautiful. They drink too much, and when they drink too much, they sing zmiras. They put on the defiance tape, whatever, and they rock out Marvelous Midas Machine. Now let me ask you a question. What do you think most human beings, a bunch of dudes in a bar, you ever been to a bar? Never been there, but I read about it. So in a bar, when a bunch of dudes get very, very drunk, what do they talk about? Girls. Well, yeah, sports, but in between the girls. They talk about girls. So when the guys get drunk and they talk about girls, now let's understand something. If you're in the sports bar, okay? If you're in the sports bar and you're drinking with your friends and you're talking about girls, you're talking about specific girls, right? Because you know everybody there, right? So it's like, oh my God, yeah, what about Cindy? What about Sharon? What about Consuela, right? You talk about specific girls. But if you're in a party where there's 127 different nations there, now you're not talking about Cindy and Consuela. Now you're talking about Las Colombianas. Now you're talking about, oh, no. See, you guys are from New York, so you think that the New York girls are the best, but you're crazy, because we're from California, and the Cali chicks are just a whole different level. And then there's like some Canadian there, and he's like, no, it's the girls from the tundra, they're the best. And then then there's the girls from Argentina, and then there's the girls from Brazil, and it's a big map. It's a very, very big map. So each place is like, our girls are the best. No, our girls are the best. No, our girls are the best. They're not talking about cooking, I'm just telling you, okay? So now meanwhile, Achashverosh is watching this whole thing go down. And he's just like, I'm gonna wait till they finish. And then when they finish, he's like, you think your girls are the hottest? You wanna see something special? You wanna see something different level? Because my toy, that's literally what he calls her. He says, Klisha ani mishtamesh bo, which means like the toy that I use, because that's how he sees his wife. That's how he sees Vashti, the blue blood daughter of the king of Babylonia. He sees her essentially as just a toy. He's like, yeah, you want to see something really special? I'll show you something really, really special. Now, by the way, when he says, do you guys want to see something really special? They said, nah, we don't. I'm just kidding. They said, yes, we do. Absolutely. Let's see. Bring her out. Now, naturally, you're not just going to bring your wife out to show off how beautiful she is to your friends. That's not enough. She has to be naked. Otherwise, it does not count. So the Gemara says, yeah, we want to see her. But only if she's naked. So they made a compromise. She can wear a crown. That was the compromise. So it says. So in this meeting, when he's so drunk, and they start arguing about which women are the hottest, he then says to his guys, he says, hey, go to bring Vashti, the queen, in front of the king in a royal crown and nothing else. To show. To show off to all the people and the courtiers, because she is a smoke show. As the Gemara says, she's one of those beautiful women ever to live, but not a nice person. She lacked personality. What she had in looks, she lacked in niceness. She was very evil. In fact, you know what she used to do? Heinous person. I won't say I won't tell you what I think of her because we're recording, but you know what I think of her. So she used to have a team of Jewish slave girls, of Jewish handmaidens. Now, she would make them work. You understand, she's queen of the world, so she doesn't just have Jewish handmaidens. She also has Mistama, Peruvian handmaidens, and Australian handmaidens. She's got all sorts of handmaidens, but the Jewish ones, she made them work on Saturdays, specifically. That was their day to work. The Jewish girls, they worked on Saturday, exclusively Saturday, naked. naked. You say, why? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? You're telling me it's like you wash dishes better, and then the answer is, what are you talking about? Why am I doing that? To humiliate you. What are you not understanding? Because I want you to suffer. You know how I know I want you to suffer? Because I made you work on Saturday. If not for that, like, I don't care what you wear, just do a good job. But no. I want you to be humiliated. And therefore, the Gemara says, Bayom HaShevi'i, it was the seventh day. It was the seventh day. Kitov Leiv HaMelech Bayayin, because it's all coming back now. And she refused, Queen Vashti, to come at the request of the king, Asher B'yad Sarisim, that was in the hand of the courtiers. And the king was very frothy. And his anger burned in him. Now you understand, this makes no sense. I don't understand. Like the Gemara says, you just told me, Shnei Ma'oso Davar Niskavnu. You said that Vashti, the plan was to come out naked. That was the plan. So if it's the plan, then why did she refuse? I thought she wanted that. I thought that's what the whole thing was. And the Gemara's like, yeah, because, Gabriel came and pinned a tail on her. You learned that Megilas when you were a kid? That was my favorite stories. She grew a tail. Or she broke out in saras and got pimply. That's what the Gemara says. It's not, right? It's a little hard to understand. Like, really? Because if that's the case, then what she should have said was, listen. They come to her, they're like, oh, Achashverosh, he says it's time. He says it's time. Just listen, I just had a terrible breakout of hives. Tell him he doesn't want to see that right now. Tell him to give me 48 hours. I'm going to take some Benadryl, and then we'll come out and we'll do the plan, and everything's going to be great. You think Achashverosh? The whole reason Achashverosh wants her to dance is to show her off. That's the whole reason. So if he's showing her off anyway, then that means he doesn't want her to show up if she's all speckled like that. Well, come on. So why doesn't she just say that and then nothing happens? But listen to what the pasuk says. The pasuk says, "Vatima'in hamalka Vashti," and the queen Vashti refused, "Lavo b'dvar hamelech," to come at the request of the king, "Asher b'yad sarisim," that was in the hands of the courtiers. I know it was in the hands of the courtiers. You just told me. You just told me in the previous pasuk. I'm sorry, 2 psukim ago. It says, "Amar limhuman b'sach harona b'ksav avasazi savarchakas." You told me lahavias Vashti hamalka, to bring Vashti the queen. You told me that. So what do you mean? And the queen Vashti refused to come at the word of the king that was in the hand of the Sarisim. That's redundant. It's not redundant. It's not telling you what she refused. It's telling you why she refused. It's why. We made a deal. The deal was, I'm going to have a girl party, you're going to have a guy party, and then we will have the denouement on the 7th day, and we're going to have a real party. And then you know what you did? You got drunk, and you summoned me. That's a whole different thing. See, if I'm coming to you and I get all the single ladies, that's women's liberation. That is, I have the power. I want to do this. This is my decision. I am empowered. That's not what you did. You sent your 7 goons to walk into the girl party and be like, hey, His Majesty wants you to strip down and come do the Macarena. Which means you made this a power play. Well, guess what? You're a drunkard. She humiliates him. Now, the Vilna Gaon points out an unbelievable diuk here. The king calls for Vashti Hamalka, which means Vashti the queen. Vatima'in Hamalka Vashti, but Queen Vashti refuses. But which one is she? Is she Vashti the queen or is she Queen Vashti? And the answer is, it depends who you ask. It's a constitutional crisis. According to Achashverosh, I'm the king, you're married to me. The spouse of the monarch is the queen. According to Vashti, I'm the monarch. You're not royal. I'm royal. You're a bum. You married me. You're the prince consort. You're, what's his name? Prince Philip. Whatever. Nobody takes that guy seriously. Yeah, guess what? That's what she said to him. Now there's a problem. Now you can't go to couples therapy. You just made this about who's the monarch and who's not the monarch. There is no forgiveness now. This is a problem. So now, Vayisof HaMelech Ma'od, the king gets frothy, which means whenever you have ketzef, it means that it literally means froth. Katzefet is whipped cream, because it flows over, it goes everywhere. That's his anger. Vachamaso, and his heat, ba'aravo, it boiled within him. Ooh, I'm gonna try to finish
So
up
she
in the
didn't
next 10
break
minutes.
out?
Yeah, she did break out. She did break out. Remember, what the
But
Gemara is
instead of
saying,
giving him a reason, she just
exactly,
got
she reacts that way. Instead of, she had a very easy out. She could have just said, listen, whatever, and then it would have been fine.
Then why
Instead,
break out? She would have said
it
no
could be
anyway.
that she would have said yes otherwise. It's this and that, right? The question is, because she feels this way, because she's itchy, therefore she gets testy and says this, right? So it's all the little things. You know how sometimes, right? Sometimes everything is good. We're going on vacation, so I'm all patient in the car. But like, what happens if, I know that never happened, but whatever, let's just say, okay? So like, now imagine it's the same thing and it's the same vacation, it's the same car, but before you got in the car, you got a call from work that there was a problem. And then on the way out, you stub your toe, and then you get in the car and the kids start fighting. It's a whole different car ride. It's a whole different car ride because the context shifted. I mean, we all know this. So now, v'chamaso ba'aravo, his anger burned within him, which means, the Chazal explained, he had the mental capacity and the emotional capacity to keep it on the DL. He didn't lash out. He's the king. He didn't make it so that people would see. Vayomer HaMelech HaChachamim Yodei Ha'Itim, Pasuk Yud Gimel 13, and the king said to the wise men, the knowers of the time, Ki chen dvar HaMelech lefnei kol Yodei das vadin. Because this was the way of the king in front of the people that know das vadin. Remember, we said das does not mean religion, it means culture. They know culture and law. Culture and law. Culture and law. Why? Because you need both. Because if you're the president of the United States and you want to know if a particular policy should be advanced or not, you don't only ask the attorneys general, you ask your lawyers, and then who do you ask? David Axelrod. You ask your spin man. You ask the people who understand the politics of the time. You call them and you say, hey, how is this going to play with the people? So he always looks at two things, das and din. How will the people react, and what's the law? Now the Gemara says, when he asks the Chachamim Yodei Ha'itim, who know the times, it refers to the Sanhedrin. So he goes to the Jews and says to the Jews, hey, Jews, you're really wise. Tell me what to do with my wife problem. See, this is a real problem. What is the king's mental state right now? Drunk. He's drunk off, he crunk, right? It's like different level drunk. This guy is Jason Kelsey at the party drunk, okay? Now, yes?
What I don't understand is why wasn't this issue of who was the queen?
Why wasn't it established before?
Right.
Because they were all equal in co-monarchy. Everything was supposed to be the boys and the girls together. It's going to be amazing. We should never have to work that out. We rule together. And that would have been fine. Until it wasn't. It was never a problem. All of a sudden.
So you were saying that even before
Beforehand, they were co-monarchs. And now, all of a sudden, now someone's got to win and someone's got to lose. So he comes over to the Jews, and he's like, hey, you guys are really smart. The Gemara understands Yodei Ha'itim means that they are Ma'aber Hadashim. They control the calendar. That's why it's Yodei Ha'itim. He says, what do I do? And they say to him, well, we got a problem. If we say to him, you should kill her, he'll do it. And then tomorrow, he'll sober up. And who's he going to blame for his lack of hot wife? You. He's going to kill you. So we don't want to do that. If we say to him, you know what, Your Majesty, we think she deserves a second chance. She's a really nice lady, that Vashti fellow. She makes great arroz con pollo. You should let her live. Yeah. Then he's going to be all angry that why don't you respect the monarchy? You don't care about my feelings. And then he's going to kill you. So either way, you're dead. So either you could die today, you could die tomorrow. That's not a good choice. So instead, the rabbis opted for choice 3. And choice 3, they said to him, since you guys destroyed the temple, we're not as smart. So sorry, you should ask someone who knows more than we do. Wah, wah. So he does. V'hakarov elav. And the closest to him, Karshno, Shesar, Masasar, Shishmeres, Marsana, Memuchan, Shiva Sarei Parasu Madai. The seven officers of Persian media, Ro'ei Pnei HaMelech, who see the face of the king, Hayoshvim Rishona B'Malchus, who sit first in the monarchy, Kidas Malasos B'Malka Vashti. What to do with Queen Vashti? Because she did not do what the king told her to do in the hands of the courtiers. Now you recognize this guy Memuchan is number 7. Karshana Shesar Masasar Shishmeres Marsana Memuchan. He is the lowest ranking of the members. He has another name. You and I know him as Haman. So this Haman Memuchan character is number 7 of these officers. What's the difference between these 7 and the original 7? It says Va'karove love. Excuse me. He said to his friends, Mihuman, Bigsa, Vavagsa, Zesar, V'charkas. I skipped. Limhuman, Bizisa, Charvona, Bigsa, Vavagsa, Zesar, V'charkas. Those are the 7. Shivasa Sarisim, Hamesharsim, Espanei HaMelech Achashverosh. Those are his body men. They are his friends. These 7, not his friends. These 7 are the 7 most influential members of the cabinet. And that's why they are called Ro'ei Pnei HaMelech. They see the face of the king. Other people never even see the king. Hayoshvim Rishona Ba'malchut. They sit first in the monarchy. These are the 7 guys that are in charge after the king. They're not his boys. They're his advisors. The smallest of the advisors, Haman. What do we do with Malka Vashti? What do we do with Queen Vashti? That's a problem. Vayomer Memuchan lifnei hamelech va'asarim, and Memuchan says before the king and the officers, and the Gemara says, why does he say it first? Because Hed Yod Kofetz Barosh. The little guy, the loser, he's always got to talk first. That's Haman. Haman has to talk first. And he says, Lo ala melech levado avsa Vashti amalka. Not only on the king did Vashti sin, ki al kol hasarim v'al kol ha'amim asher b'chol medinos hamelech Achashverosh. See, she has sinned against, and again, it's not Queen Vashti here, it's Vashti the queen. She has sinned against all the officers in all the nations, in all of the countries of King Achashverosh. Really? 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 His wife doesn't want to come and dance naked for your friends. She sinned to not just you, but every single human in the entire country. I mean, that's a bit much. Why does he say such a thing? The answer is because he's a genius. He's an absolute genius. The king is in trouble. The king is in huge trouble. The king cannot say that he has to kill the queen because she hurt his feelings. Because if he says that, then what is he? Loser. Loser. He ain't no king. Right? A man who says, I'm the king! You are no king. So he can't. He has to pretend to not be angry. That's why he says, V'chamaso ba'aravo. So he's controlling his rage. And he is beyond and mortified. But he can't say it. So you know what Haman gives him? The ultimate out. He takes the problem away from Achashverosh. He says, Your Majesty, I know you're such a kind and magnanimous monarch. You would want to give her a second chance. We understand that because you never take anything personally, Your Majesty, because you're such a big fellow. But lo melech levado avsa Vashti amalka. You recognize that she did not sin to you. Ki al kol hasarim v'al kol ha'amim asher b'chol medinos hamelech Achashverosh. This has nothing to do with you, Your Majesty. In fact, you can't let her go because she just destroyed the nuclear family. What's going to happen? All the women are going to start getting uppity and talking down to their men. B'yomram, when they say, King Achashverosh called Vashti the queen and she didn't come. And today, Hayom Hazet, today, not tomorrow, not next month, not in a year, today, all of the females who are married to the officers in Persia and Media, Asher Shamu es Devar Makol Chosrei HaMelech, Uchadai Bizayon V'Katzef. It is required anger and mortification. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, you can't give her a pass. You have to do this. I know you're such a great guy. I know you're not upset, but you have to. Imal Melech Tov, if it pleases the king, it has to be written in the annals of Persia and Media forever, ever, Asher lo tavo Vashti, that Vashti wouldn't come. Notice she's not even Vashti the queen anymore. She just lost her crown. What do we call her now? Vashti. Asher lo tavo Vashti, that Vashti wouldn't come. Lifnei hamelech Achashverosh, umalchu sachitein hamelech l'rusa hatova mimena, and the king will give her crown to her friend who is better than she. And those words echo through history. We're going to bring this down the next 5 minutes. We're going to bring it to a close. These words echo through history because we know that the guy who is talking to the king is Haman, and Haman says the king should give her crown to her friend who is better than she. But those words were used before. Those words were used 500 years before when a prophet named Shmuel was talking to the first Jewish king from Shevet Binyamin named Shaul. And when Shaul failed to execute Hashem's command to destroy Amalek, he left the king, whose name was Agag, he left him alive, and when he leaves him alive, he loses his throne. And Shmuel comes to see Shaul, and it says to him, you are donezo, my friend. you are donezo. God has taken away your malchut, he has taken away your kingship, and he's going to give it l'reacha hatov mimeka, to your friend who is better than you. Who is he referring to? David. David. God's going to take away your crown and give it to your friend who is greater than you. That's what Shmuel says to Shaul for letting Amalek live. And because Shaul let Amalek live, this Agag gentleman has an ultimate descendant whose name is Memuchan. And that same Memuchan looks at King Achashverosh and says, you have to give Vashti's crown to her friend who is better than she. And who's it going to go to? It's going to go to the granddaughter of that original guy who lost the crown with those same words. L'ruta hatova mimena. V'nishma piskam ha'melech asher yaseh b'chol malchuso ki rabahi. V'chol anashim yinu yikar levalihen lemigadol v'yad katon. And this has to go out to all of the different people because it's a big deal, and all the women will give glory to their husbands, whether they be big or small. And the Medrash explains that, why is Memuchan so hung up on this whole women thing? Anyway, whenever you see men talking about how bad and evil women are, things aren't all so good at home, right? You know what I'm saying? They're not so good at home. Methinks this Haman guy is a little bit too hung up on the whole girl thing, yeah? You know why? Because his wife, Haman's wife, Haman has a huge inferiority complex. Haman is the 7th most important person in the kingdom. But he's smallest of all the courtiers. He's the 7th out of 7. He's very small. You know why he's so rich? Because he married rich. So who's the real money? Zeresh, not him. So he's got a bone to pick because he feels inferior because he's married to a woman who's got the real, And so is Achashverosh, and out with it, he does it. And it was good in the eyes of the king and the officers. And the king did what Memuchan said. Now you say, why would the courtiers think this is a good idea? Why would the officers think it's a good idea? And the answer is the officers think it's the best idea they've ever heard in their life, because the king just said, what should I do with the queen? And remember, what is the king in his mental state? We know 2 things about him. Number 1, he's absolutely crunk, and number 2, he's absolutely fuming. And that's not a good compilation, right? When you put those things together, they're very drunk and very angry. It doesn't go well. It's a bad combination. So just like the Jews didn't want to say yes killer, no killer, no one wants to answer. The answer is a lose-lose because you die today or you die tomorrow. And then Haman jumps up and goes, I'll tell you what to do. And like, well, how do you think the other guys felt? Relieved. They're like, yeah, Your Majesty, you should listen to Hammy. Hammy, he knows. And then what are they going to tell him? He's going to wake up sober in 48 hours. He's going to be, where the heck is Vashti? And they're like, well, Your Majesty, remember you killed her? I killed her? Who told me to kill her? It was him. We tried to tell you not to listen to him, Your Majesty. We tried to convince you not to listen to Hammy, but you listen to Hammy, and then Hammy will die, and they'll be very happy. So they were all, they were very happy. And they sent letters to all the countries of the king. Each country in its alphabet. And each nation with its language. That the man of the house is the king of the castle, and we will speak in his language. And you say, that's a very strange thing to send all of the people in your country. That is a very, very strange thing to send them. And the Gemara points out that if not for these absolutely idiotic first letters, the Jews would have died. Because later on, Achashverosh sends out other letters, and they're not complimentary to the Yids. They're very, very bad. Here's the thing, though. The first time you get a communication from the king, you're excited, and you open it up, and you read it. And you know what they read? They read, the man is the man of the house, and they speak in his language. And people are like, that's it? That's what you, really? The king's a moron. You're never going to listen to anything this guy says. He's crazy. You're telling me I'm the man of the house? You think I know I'm the man of the house? So the Gemara says even like the lowest worker on the totem pole, whatever he is, right? The guy that rivets the manholes. He's the king of his house, obviously. Like, why would you send that to him? He thinks you're crazy. Joe the plumber thinks you're nuts when you tell him things he already knows. So number 1, why would he do something? Achashverosh is not stupid, and Haman is certainly not stupid. So with this we will end. The answer is because this was not about men of the house. This was about Vashti. This was a power struggle as to who's the monarch. Well, the reason that she's the real monarch and not he is because she's royal blood from Nebuchadnezzar. She's royal blood from Babylonia. Babylonia is the lingua franca. It's the official language of the entire kingdom. All communications are written in kastit, with their language, with their alphabet. Not anymore. Not anymore. That changed on the same day. So with this we will end, and we'll pick up with this next time. The pasuk says, it says that Rav Kahana have a pasuk Piska Me'Ai Parshas Mehacha. They used to open up the Megillah by saying, the pasuk says, V'ichrati lebavel shem u'she'er v'nin v'neched. Which means that God says that I will destroy Babylonia, V'ichrati lebavel. I will cut off for Bavel shem, a name, u'she'er, and relatives, v'nin, and a great-grandchild, v'neched, and a grandchild. And the Gemara says, shame, that refers to writing. Ushe'er, that refers to language. Vanin, that refers to Malchus. Vaneched, that refers to Vashti. We will begin, Be'ezrat Hashem, next Thursday at 8 p.m., and I'll explain why. Have a great week.